Ladies and gentlemen, every day starts the same. The sun rises and time begins to move. The clock doesn't ask how you feel. It doesn't care about your reasons, and it won't pause just because you're stressed or unmotivated. Time moves forward, hour by hour, minute by minute, whether you're prepared or not. The day begins and you're presented with a choice. Each morning, you either take charge of your day or it takes charge of you. It may sound straightforward, but this choice is critical. That one decision sets the tone, shapes your momentum, and becomes the pace your entire life starts to follow. When you claim control of your day, when you wake up and act with purpose, you create structure, set direction, and guide your energy. But if you wait to see what the day throws at you, if you let the noise arrive before you're ready, if you stay stuck in reaction mode, you lose. Not due to lack of effort or desire, but because you handed control to something else, distractions, obligations, passing emotions, and people who have no stake in your goals. You gave up the driver's seat to anything willing to take it, and when that happens, your day takes over. It decides your direction, your focus, your mindset. It determines what gets done and what doesn't. You either guide the day or the day guides you. That's not just a catchy phrase, it's a principle. That's how momentum is built. The ones who move forward, who lead, who grow, they're not necessarily more skilled or naturally gifted. They simply made a decision to stop being a passenger in their own life. They don't wait for the perfect moment, for a spark of motivation, or for someone to hand them a plan. They act. They decide. They build habits that generate energy, drive outcomes, and create lasting impact. The moment they wake, they begin moving, not frantically, not out of desperation, but with purpose, with intention, with clarity. Because success isn't about doing more, it's about doing what matters. It's not about packing every hour with noise, it's about eliminating distractions and creating space for focus, for meaningful action, for decisions that move your life in the right direction. If you don't define what those things are, something else will. And whatever fills that space won't be designed for your growth. Things can change, and they can change quickly. It begins the moment you decide that the day no longer owns you, that your energy, your focus, your rhythm, and your choices are yours to command. That moment changes everything. You begin to see more clearly. You filter out distractions. You stop making deals with procrastination. You stop letting urgency trick you into believing its importance. And you finally begin to prioritize what truly matters, not eventually, not when it's easier, but now, because now is all you have. You don't create a powerful life through the occasional productive afternoon. You build it by waking up every single day with the mindset, I lead, I choose, I own this. And then you back it up, not with noise, but with decisions, not with hype, but with structure, not just with good intentions, but with real daily discipline. If you want to take control of the day, it starts by mastering how it begins, because how you start shapes how you show up. It doesn't just influence the first hour, it carries through the rest of your day. Your morning is the foundation, and if that foundation is weak, the day becomes all about catching up, putting out fires, reacting to whatever's thrown at you. Most people start their mornings in a state of reaction. They reach for the alarm, hit snooze, roll over, and their first conversation is with comfort. The first choice they make is to delay action. It seems like a small thing, but it sends a clear message to your mind. Comfort is in charge today, not momentum, not intention, not purpose. Then the morning spirals, late, rushed, already behind. It becomes a blur. There's no space to lead your thoughts or guide your energy. You step into the day already depleted, frustrated, handing over your power to the ticking clock and incoming noise. And the world won't stop. It will keep coming at you, messages, tasks, distractions, demands. If you enter the day without clarity, without structure, without rhythm, those things will take control. You'll find yourself on autopilot, chasing tasks, solving surface problems, moving in circles. But when you take charge of that first hour, everything shifts. You begin your day with purpose. You wake up, and before the world gets to you, you reconnect with your vision. You anchor yourself in something deeper, something clear and steady. You don't ask what the world wants from you. You ask who you want to be today, and you move forward from that place. That's where real power comes from, not from speed or from doing everything, but from doing the right things, the few things that actually matter. And the easiest way to do those things is by beginning the day with structure, stillness, and presence, not noise, not urgency, not distraction. So you build your morning with intention. You shape it, you guard it, and you treat it as something meaningful, not just for the sake of having a routine, but for the sake of control. Because when you take ownership of your morning, you send a clear signal to your mind, I'm in control, and that energy follows you throughout the day. And you don't need a perfect 2-hour ritual. You don't need to copy what others are doing. You just need a rhythm that belongs to you, something simple, something real, a practice that reminds your body, mind, and spirit, we lead, we move. We don't wait for the day to choose our direction. We set it ourselves. Maybe that means rising before the world starts speaking into your mind. Maybe it's movement, silence, journaling, reading, reflection, or simply deep breaths. Whatever centers you, whatever brings you clarity, that's what matters. The content matters less than the commitment. What counts is the consistency, the discipline to show up for yourself before showing up for anything else. And that discipline isn't just about being productive, it's about self-respect. It's about declaring, before I give myself to the world, I return to myself. Before you respond to anything outside you, you check in with what's inside, your values, your mission, your sense of purpose. That's not selfish, that's leadership. Because when you begin the day grounded, the rest of the day becomes more manageable. Decisions are easier. Distractions lose their grip. You're no longer searching for clarity. You already have it. You're not spinning in place. You're already moving. And it doesn't require a major transformation. It only takes intention. One choice to begin the day with purpose instead of panic. One decision to start aligned, not rushed. One moment where you say, today doesn't control me, I control it. And then you follow through. That single act, repeated daily, forms a pattern. And patterns shape who you become. Suddenly, you're not someone who struggles to stay focused. You're someone who is focused. You're not wishing for more time, you're creating it. You're not reacting to everything, you're leading the day with direction. This is how momentum is built, not in dramatic shifts or bursts of effort, but in steady acts of intention. Ownership practice over and over becomes identity. You stop waiting for the ideal morning, and instead you start building the best one possible. And once the morning becomes yours, the rest of the day begins rising to meet that new standard. But even with a strong start, you can still lose control of your day if you forget one thing. Attention is your most valuable asset. Not time, not money, not even energy, attention. Because wherever your attention goes, your energy follows, your actions follow, your results follow. And if you're not protecting it, you're handing away your direction. One small distraction at a time. Most people don't even realize it's happening. Their day becomes a blur, a chain of interruptions, a loop of constant switching, never fully present anywhere. They begin the day with a goal, and by midday, they're buried under someone else's priorities. This isn't about working longer hours. It's not about turning yourself into a nonstop productivity machine. It's about ownership. It's about recognizing that your mind was never designed to be pulled in 12 directions at once. Multitasking isn't an achievement, it's a fast track to burnout. Our life reflects where your focus consistently goes. You don't elevate by simply doing more. You grow by doing the right things with depth, attention, and full presence. That kind of focus, it's no longer second nature. The world has conditioned you to be scattered, to switch tasks, to react constantly, but focus isn't lost forever. It can be rebuilt, it can be trained, and it begins with intention. Every morning, before the noise sets in, you make a choice. What will get your focus today? Not 25 things, not every item on your to-do list, just the essentials, the few actions that create momentum that move your life forward. The ones that even if nothing else goes right will make today count. You write them down, you define them clearly. No vagueness, no hoping things will fall into place. You make the decision, this is what I'm building today. This gets my attention. Everything else, it can wait. It adjusts around your priorities, not the other way around. And then you protect the time for those priorities like your life depends on it. Because it does. Not in a dramatic sense, but in a very practical, real one. If you don't prioritize what matters, someone else's agenda will replace your own. So you silence the noise, you close the tabs, you put your phone in another room if necessary. You stop giving away shallow yeses and instead offer a strong, focused yes to what truly matters. That's how you reclaim control. Not by adding more tasks, but by being fully present where it counts. Presence is where your best work happens. That's where clarity becomes sharper, where solutions become more creative, where insight grows deeper. Flow doesn't happen by chance. It's built through rhythm, simplicity, and clear boundaries. And yes, that takes discipline. It means saying no more often. It means becoming comfortable with not responding immediately to every message, notification, or sudden request. But the more you protect your focus, the more others will learn to respect it. Your attention becomes something sacred, and when you guard it, everything else starts working better. Decisions feel simpler. Energy lasts longer. Creativity stretches further. Why? Because your mind isn't scattered across 100 unfinished thoughts. It's not constantly resetting. It's no longer trapped in a dozen open loops. You don't have to be switched on all day. You just need to be fully engaged during the moments that matter. You don't need 12 hours of grind. You need a few protected hours of deep focused work. Free from distraction, fully yours. That kind of daily focus is where real breakthroughs happen. And don't confuse being busy with being focused. They are not the same. Busy is reactive. Focus is intentional. Busy is just motion. Focus is momentum. Busy wears you down. Focus lifts you up. Busy leaves you drained. Focus leaves you fulfilled. So stop celebrating being busy. Stop mistaking chaos for progress. Instead, measure your day by how aligned your energy was. Ask yourself, did I move what really mattered? Did I build something meaningful? Did I lead my day? Or was my attention pulled in every direction? You get to choose every single hour. And at any moment, you can reset. You can pause, breathe, and ask yourself, is this where I want to be right now? And if where you are right now isn't where you want to be, you redirect without guilt, without shame, just awareness, just leadership, because leadership doesn't start with others. It starts with how you lead yourself. It begins with how you treat your focus, how you manage your time, how you protect your energy. That's the first level of power. And if you skip that, you'll always find yourself chasing results without building the foundation to sustain them. Once you've taken control of your mornings and started owning your attention, the next challenge becomes consistency. Without it, nothing sticks. Progress becomes unreliable, habits stay fragile, and confidence never compounds. You can work incredibly hard for days or even weeks, but without consistency, it doesn't become who you are. It doesn't turn into identity. Consistency isn't about being perfect or robotic. It's about showing up for the right things every day, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Because that's where real growth happens. Anyone can take action when it's convenient, when motivation is high, when the environment feels just right. But the people who win, who build lasting impact, they act when no one's watching, when the applause is gone, when the outcome hasn't arrived yet. They've internalized a truth most ignore. Consistency is not about how you feel, it's about what you've decided. And when that decision is rooted deep, action becomes automatic. You stop waiting to feel inspired, you stop debating with comfort, and you stop letting emotions choose your level of effort. You just show up. And here's the paradox. Consistency is difficult at the beginning, but it makes everything else easier. You save energy because you're not constantly guessing what comes next. You don't have to fight with your schedule. You don't need the perfect mood. You have a rhythm, and rhythm breeds momentum. This doesn't mean grinding yourself into the ground. It means building systems that support your goals, systems that remove friction and make showing up part of your identity. Because discipline, when done right, doesn't feel like punishment. It feels like alignment. It feels like self-respect, like you're honoring your future, like you're keeping your word to yourself. And that's the most important promise of all. Because every time you say you'll do something and don't, your self-trust erodes. Your confidence weakens. Your brain learns that your words don't carry weight. But every time you follow through, no matter how small the action, you're casting a vote for the person you're becoming. You send a signal to your nervous system, this is who we are now. And with every repeated action, that identity gets stronger until it doesn't feel like effort. It just feels like you. So don't overlook the small things, the 5 minutes of deep work, the one healthy decision, the journal entry, the stretch, the prayer, the moment of stillness. These aren't small. They're proof that the shift is happening, that the momentum is real. And consistency doesn't mean rigidity. Life happens. You'll miss a day, you'll slip, you'll make mistakes. That doesn't mean you failed. It doesn't mean you start over. It means you recommit, you reset, you come back. You don't spiral, you return, because the standard isn't perfection, it's resilience. It's being able to fall off and get back on without shame, without hesitation. It's having the awareness to say, that's not who I am anymore, and then proving it with action. This is where momentum lives, not in intensity, not in random bursts, but in rhythm. And rhythm is born from one thing, showing up every day in some way. Not just when it's fun, not just when it's easy or convenient, but when it's necessary. And here's the beautiful part. When you live with that kind of consistency, you stop needing motivation. You stop searching for inspiration because you're no longer acting based on how you feel. You're acting based on who you've decided to become. And that kind of identity, it's unshakable. It doesn't rise and fall with results. It doesn't depend on praise or recognition. It stays steady through the wins and the losses because it's built on discipline, on habits, on truth. So you keep stacking those days one after another. You stop measuring your life by speed and start measuring by depth, by alignment, by how closely your actions reflect your values, and you trust the process because the results, they'll come, not always on your timeline, but always on time. The only thing that can stop them is you stopping. So don't stop. Even when it's boring, even when it's hard, even when no one sees. Keep showing up, keep proving to yourself that your word means something, that your future matters enough to fight for it today. If consistency is the engine that keeps you moving, then clarity is the map that keeps you from getting lost. Because you can be incredibly consistent and still head in the wrong direction. You can wake up early, do the work, show up, execute, and still end up unfulfilled, still feel exhausted, still wonder why none of it feels like enough. That's what happens without clarity. You confuse motion with meaning. You confuse movement with progress. And you build a life that might look good on the outside, but feels hollow on the inside because you never defined the destination. You never decided what you were actually aiming for. Most people spend more time planning a weekend trip than they do designing their life. They let the world hand them a schedule. They let other people's expectations dictate their priorities. Then they wonder why they're always climbing but never arriving. That's what clarity changes. Clarity's power, it simplifies everything. It cuts through the noise. It brings focus, not just on what you want, but on why you want it, who you want to become in the process, what you're willing to give, and what you're no longer willing to tolerate. And clarity doesn't show up by accident. You have to create it through reflection, through honesty, through stillness. You have to sit with yourself and ask the hard questions, not what do they want from me, but what do I expect from myself? Not what should I be doing, but what must I be doing to become who I was built to be? That means stripping away the noise, getting quiet, and listening, not to the pressure of the world, but to the pull of your own purpose. Because purpose whispers. It doesn't shout. It doesn't compete with the volume of your distractions, but it's always there. And when you find it, when you align with it, everything changes. You stop chasing empty goals. You stop grinding for the approval of people who don't matter. You stop living out scripts you didn't write. You start building a life that reflects who you truly are and who you're becoming. And clarity doesn't mean you know every step. It just means you know the direction. You know the outcome you're working toward. You know the standard you refuse to lower. You know the feeling you're chasing. You know when you're in alignment and you know when you're not. And that's all you need. Because with clarity, decisions become simple. You stop overthinking, you stop hesitating, you stop freezing. You ask yourself one question: does this move me closer to who I want to be? If the answer is yes, you move. If the answer is no, you let it go without guilt, without apology, without justifying yourself to people who don't understand your path, because clarity creates conviction, and conviction creates freedom, the freedom to act, to decide, to build. You no longer need agreement, reassurance, or constant encouragement because you're not building from doubt anymore. You're building from decision. And that decision, the one to live with clarity, takes courage because clarity removes the option to pretend. Once you know what you want, you can't hide behind "I'm not sure." Once you've named the vision, you must face whether your current life reflects it or not. But that pressure, it's a gift. It forces alignment, it forces growth, it forces you to rise. It doesn't always feel good, but it is good because it's real. Real growth lives in real truth. So you write the vision, you speak the standard, you define the path, not because you know every step, but because your life deserves direction, your time deserves intention, your energy deserves precision. And the more you live with clarity, the more powerful you become. Not louder, not busier, but more focused, more grounded, more effective. You stop trying to be everything to everyone. You just become exactly who you were created to be. And people will notice, not because you're chasing them, but because you've stopped chasing anything. You're just moving with purpose, with rhythm, with certainty. And that certainty is magnetic. You no longer need control or guarantees because you're not anchored to outcomes. You're anchored to alignment. And alignment is stronger than results because results come and go. But alignment is forever. So when the day begins, you don't ask, what do I feel like doing? You ask, what matters most today? You don't ask what's easiest, you ask what's right. You don't ask what's urgent, you ask what's essential. And then you act with clarity, with consistency, with power. Because once you know what you're building, once you know who you're becoming, the day doesn't run you, you run it. Clarity shows you the path, consistency walks it. But what keeps you on that path when life gets heavy, when plans fall apart, when momentum fades, when emotions hit hard, is emotional discipline, because no matter how clear your vision or how dialed in your systems, there will be days when you don't feel like showing up. And this is the part few talk about, the emotional weight of leadership, especially self-leadership, the responsibility for your time, your energy, your reactions. It's easy to lead when life is smooth, but how do you lead when stress is high, when you're tired, when emotions pull you off center? That's where emotional discipline steps in. The ability to feel without folding, to honor emotions without obeying them, to say this is frustration, not truth. This is fear, not a fact. This is doubt, not direction. Your emotions are not the enemy, but they are not in charge. You are. And when you master that, you don't just build habits, you build power. You become unshakable, not because life gets easier, but because you've grown stronger. You can feel it, you can acknowledge it, but you don't obey it. Because obedience to emotion is how most people lose the day. They let a moment of anger ruin a conversation, a wave of self-doubt shut down an opportunity, the weight of overwhelm stop them from starting anything. They feel something and assume it must be true, but feelings are not always facts. That's why you have to learn how to pause, how to breathe, react instead of react. That one skill alone, pausing, can save relationships, protect your energy, and prevent impulsive decisions that don't reflect who you really are. This isn't about suppressing emotion. It's about processing it, owning it, making space for it, without letting it hijack your day, because the more you can feel without being controlled, the more powerful you become. When you develop emotional discipline, you stop spiraling, you stop creating drama where there is none, you stop exhausting yourself with mental overreactions to things that don't need your full emotional bandwidth, and you save that bandwidth for what does matter. That's the true power of self-leadership, not just in your calendar, not just in your routines, but in your ability to regulate yourself under pressure, to bring your best self into the room, even when everything outside that room feels uncertain. And that emotional discipline, it's not complicated. It's built in the reps, in the moments when you want to snap, but instead you recommit. When you want to shrink, but instead you step forward. Over time, you begin to trust yourself. You know you can handle stress. You know you can manage overwhelm. You know you can move forward even when emotion says pause. And that trust is the foundation for resilience, because life won't just test you once. It will test you constantly. The question is never, will it get hard? The question is, who will you be when it does? Will you let the day run you, or will you ground yourself, take a breath, and lead through it? This is what separates the great from the good, the builders from the drifters. Anyone can be consistent when life is smooth, but when pressure rises, when plans go sideways, do you hold your standard, or do you let the emotion of the moment lower it? The only way to hold that line is to train for it before it comes, to recognize the patterns, to rehearse your response, not to react, but to respond, because response is a choice. Reaction is automatic. You don't need to be cold. You don't need to be robotic. You just need to be grounded, aware, in control of how you show up, because how you show up determines what gets built and what gets broken. So build the muscle, build the pause, build the awareness. You don't have to suppress how you feel. You just have to own how you act. And when that becomes your pattern, you're not just running the day, you're leading yourself through it. If you've mastered your mornings, guarded your attention, built consistency, sharpened your clarity, and grounded your emotional discipline, then you're no longer reacting to life, you're shaping it. But now comes the question, most people never pause to ask, what are you shaping it into? Because running the day isn't just about efficiency, it's about direction. If you don't know what you're actually building, you might become incredibly effective at creating something you don't even want. That's the danger of unexamined ambition. You push, you grind, you fill every hour with something productive, but never stop to ask, is this the life I actually want to live? You reach for success, but it's success defined by someone else. You hit goals, but they don't fulfill you. You build a schedule so tight, there's no room for reflection, no room for peace, no room for presence. And if you're not careful, you'll trade alignment for achievement. You'll build a life that looks impressive but feels empty. You'll wake up one day having done everything right but feel like something's wrong, not because you failed, but because you never defined success for yourself. So pause, ask the question, what does success mean to me? Not what's trending, not what your friends are doing, not what your parents told you to want. What do you want your life to feel like? What do you want your days to be made of? What would a great life look like? Not from the outside, but from the inside. Start there, define it clearly, write it down, paint the picture, Because if you don't define your version of a great life, you'll spend your days building someone else's. And if you run the day with no vision, your momentum won't lead to mastery, it'll lead to burnout. True productivity isn't about doing more, it's about doing what matters. It's about alignment, about pruning what doesn't fit, about saying no, not because you're lazy, but because you're focused, because you've chosen a direction and you're not available for everything anymore. This level of ownership requires courage. It means turning down good opportunities to protect the great ones. It means disappointing some people to honor yourself. It means slowing down long enough to ask, is this still aligned? And if the answer is no, it means having the strength to pivot. That's the secret to a powerful day. Not just pushing harder, but pausing with purpose, reflecting, resetting, realigning. Because you can't afford to stay on autopilot. Even if the system is working, even if the habits are strong, even if the calendar is full, your life is not just a checklist. It's a reflection of your values, your choices, your truth. So build space for evaluation, weekly, monthly, quiet moments to ask, am I still in love with what I'm building? Do I still feel connected to the purpose behind this plan? Is my daily rhythm taking me where I want to go or just keeping me busy? When you live this way, you shift from force to flow. You stop white-knuckling every outcome. You stop trying to control every variable. You start trusting your process, not blindly, but because you've made it yours. You designed it, you refined it, you chose it. That trust brings peace, not passivity, not laziness, but grounded momentum. The kind that doesn't panic when something breaks, the kind that doesn't unravel when a plan changes because you're not running the day to prove something. You're running it to live something. And what you're living, what you're becoming is more important than what you're checking off. There's the difference between a life that feels full and a life that just looks full. And once you taste that fullness, you'll never want to go back. You'll never settle for shallow goals again. You'll never confuse noise for purpose again. Because now you're not just executing tasks, you're expressing values. You're not just being productive, you're being intentional. And that intention becomes magnetic. People feel it. Your energy becomes clear, your presence more grounded, you become more effective, not just because of what you do, but because of how you do it. And this is when the day really begins to obey you, not because you control every detail, but because you've aligned your actions with your essence. You've stopped reacting to the world and started building your world, and now the world responds. It gives you more of what matches your focus. It presents people and opportunities that match your frequency. It starts working for you, not by magic, but by alignment, because you've stopped rushing and started refining. You stopped hustling and started harmonizing. Show up anyway. Run the day anyway. And if today wasn't your best, that's fine. The next moment is always open for leadership. Take the wheel, own the hours, build the rhythm, live the standard, because your life is not defined by what you hope to do. It's defined by what you repeatedly did. And now you've decided you are the one who runs the day.